Hello my friends and welcome to episode 10 of our Football Manager 2021 Let's Play with Rangers. This is our season 1 to 2 sort of, if you like, summer window review. This has been a very difficult window to go through, but I'm bringing you in on Rodolfo Vanoli, who is our new under 18s manager. Very good. Stat wise, you can see there's some issues, but he's got good DDM, he's got moral citizen personality, which I like. Great working with youngsters up at 20. And the thing that sort of set him out for me against the other options, as I said, I want to try this mentality thing, personality thing, see how it affects our young players. But the thing that stuck out for me is he has a trait that allows creative freedom. Now that's probably a tactical thing, but it's kind of one of those things that I want my young players to really express themselves, and if he's allowing them to express themselves, that is good for me. Some other issues, of course, he's not the best in the world, but he was the preferred of the options that I had. The last guy was on a much bigger wage, wanted to pay a rise to stay. I can't remember what his name was. In fact, I can tell you right here, David McCallum, here he is. He's fairly loyal, stat wise fairly similar. Overall, worse personality, and he was on something like $3,500 a week, and he wanted to pay a rise from that. Now they did win the under 18s league, of course, so fair enough that you want to pay a rise. I just wasn't paying it, so he's left the club. His contract was expired. A few other staff out, Mason, performance analysts. I do need to go through all my staff. I've not brought anyone else really in apart from this guy who was brought in by staff. Now this is something that I've noticed I've had an issue with. Staff have been offered and I've been rejecting them. There was a bunch of friendlies arranged that I didn't even get any warning for until it was on the schedule in front of me, and at that point I kind of rolled with it, but it's basically killed my team. I didn't arrange that, and as far as I know there is no staff responsibilities to set that off, which is very frustrating. So that has affected us, and we've had our first game of the season where in the league. I'll cover that details and pre-season sort of games next episode, where we'll play Apoel in the Champions League qualifiers, which is why I've brought you back. Now I felt this was a better game to go through than Hearts, so let's get to. Tell you what, let's go for free transfers first. See, there's the players that have gone out. Jamie Murphy went, Kyle McKillian went, Chris McKee went, Nicky Hogarth, Kieran Dixon, Cammy Palmer and Greg Stewart. We brought in Jamie Semple, Cameron O'Donnell, Ethan Ross and Finn Akerpoint, of course. Now release players: Jermaine Defoe, Andy Firth, Jamie Burjonas, Kieran Wright, Matthew Shields, Brian Kinnear, Reece Breen, Jack Thompson, Jack Butterworth and Balogun, who also doesn't have, most of these don't have clubs yet. Burjonas I think is at Inverness, Firth none, Kieran Wright none, Matthew Shields, Morton reserves, Cove Rangers for Kinnear, Breen still a free agent, Jack Thompson at Arbroath, Zach Butterworth still a free agent, so probably good decisions to let most of them go, and Jermaine Defoe doesn't have any either. So here we go, all transfers. Now again, we'll just have a quick look see here. Now this is last season's, right, so yeah, these are my transfers. Is there any of the outs here? So Stoke, and loan, right, so that's December. These are all the outs, and then Jake Hasty left to Barnsley for a couple £100,000. I think there's a sale on there, and Liz McKinnon away out on loan. We've seen these guys before, I showed you them in previous episodes, so I'm not going to stress too much about them. Now on to the big ones. We're going to start with the outs because, as you see, we've spent £31 million. Now you might be a bit confused by that, because the last time you've seen me we had a £700,000 transfer budget and we were £10 million in debt. So what has happened? Well, as I said, Hasty's away, McKinnon away on loan, Richard Holster away on loan, Cammy O'Donnell away on loan as part of his signing agreement. Alfredo Morelos, the first big sale, at £37.5 million. Now at this point we were getting 10% of retainment. It really wasn't a lot to go and replace Morelos. This has been a bit of an issue for us going forward, and I'll go into more details here, but he's away to Brighton for £37 million. No sell on, the board overruled me on this transfer, so it is kind of where it was. He's away to play in England. That's where he wanted to go. I'm fairly content to let him go now. and hopefully goes and has a good spell down there. Ross McCrory away Aberdeen for 350,000. This is a deal that if I had any ability to cancel, I would have cancelled, because he would have made my life this window so much easier. He would have slotted into the central defence, realistically, and done an okay job there. He could have slotted into midfield, done an okay job there. There would have been a stress off, a big stress off having Ross McCrory in and around the team. But hey ho, we're now monitoring him while he's at Aberdeen, and we can look to bring him back in the future. Scott Arfield away to City again for 3.2 million, rising to 3.8 million. Again, just getting him off the wage budget. I think I paid a couple of 100,000 compensation for him as well. He's a good player, but he wasn't in our first team plans. He barely played for us last season. How many games did he play for us last season? 11 games it said, but 10 of those were off the bench, so take that for what you will. And 1 in the cup, so we take it to 2. I think just getting 3.2 to 3.8 million. The board aren't happiest with that fee, but again, hey ho. McLaughlin, McPake and Nico away out on loan. Now Nico does have a work permit now. As soon as he came in, I managed to get him a work permit, but there was a promise, and I checked my promises, that basically said I would loan him out, and obviously I've agreed to that, knowing that he wasn't going to get a work permit. Can loan him out, get him the work permit, but he's away to Valencia on a squad rotation deal. I don't think we can recall him. Oh, we can. So we could recall him in January should we wish to. I'll give him till then. Harley Ewan and Dillerson away out on loan. Dillerson, one of the other signings that was bring in, doesn't have a work permit. Not been able to get one for him yet, so again, just loan him out, get him off the wage bill a little bit. Connor Goldson, the biggest sale of the window, I believe. Again, this was a board done one, so no sell-on clause here. £37 million we got for Connor Goldson, with add-ons to £51 million. A big fee for big Connor Goldson. Realistically, I would have probably have agreed with the board on this one. He's 28, 29 now. Away at Southampton, he's decent, but for that kind of money, I don't think we could have turned it down. Very difficult to replace, which is a problem. Glenn Middleton away to Dundee on about £100,000 plus a sell-on fee, which I made sure to get in there. They came in a couple of times, and eventually I'm kind of like, well, he doesn't fit my system. He's left-footed, left winger. At left back, he wasn't going to work because of the tackling, and I believe the position in which I was meant to double check, 6th position, so he's not going to work as a left back. I'd been trying to retrain him as an advanced playmaker. Again, it wasn't really working. Agility and balance just not quite good enough for that either. Well, certainly agility wasn't quite good enough for that, so I'm fairly content just to cash in, get a couple 100,000 for him, plus the sell on, as I say. Jordan Jones away for 2.3 million to Bristol City. Again, I look at him and I look at Dapo Mabudi, and I don't see a whole lot of difference, other than he's 26 years old, not homegrown by the club. I think we get more out of Dapo Mabudi, and just having Dapo in the squad would be a much better option. And then we've still got Catty Kennedy and Nathan Young-Combs in similar positions, and even Josh McPake, who are all going to be limited game time because he was here. Because you put the experience in sometimes just out of habit, don't you? Cedric Itten away to Schalke for 9.25 million. He was never really going to play for me. He had a decent loan spell out at West Brom, which has really helped his value. So just get rid of him while he's worth some money. We got that money, happy days. Philip Hollander. Now this deal was accepted before the Goldson deal, and this would have probably have changed my opinion on the Goldson deal now. Took Hollander longer to accept, plus obviously work permit time because he is not British, unlike Goldson. He did get a work permit, so he's away to Bournemouth for 22 million, rising to 26 million now. I'm happy with that fee, but realistically I would not have let Hollander and Goldson go in the same window if I had had the choice. But I didn't also want to stand in his way. Again, he's 28 years old rather. I think it was a fairly good price for him, so I'm content with it overall. Again, it's just made this window a bit harder, losing both Goldson and Hollander at the same time. Jamie Hamilton on top of that also had a promise to go out on loan, so that was frustrating because then, he's one that would maybe got more game time. Because of that, he hasn't. He's had to go out on loan to Dundee, who are in the Championship, so not really where I want him to be playing. And Kelsey Ewan also out on loan. So how do we respond to these outs? We bring in players. So you've seen Nico, you've seen Dorison, We brought Bobby Carroll in. Something in January told me this was a good deal. I'm looking at him now, I'm not convinced. I kind of hope it can still work out and he can develop. We'll see how it goes as things go on. We brought Harry Cochrane in, who I also bid for in January on a free transfer. They renewed his contract and then they transfer listed him. And initially I was like, no, I'm not going to pay some money for him. His contract's up at the end of the season again. And then they reduced what they were wanting down to 18k, and I just went, do you know what? Why not? Also, apologies, my phone is on loud, so you will hear it. I am expecting some phone calls. I'm going to do some workmen in today and they're going to phone in advance, so I need to leave it on loud basically. Mohamed Daramy, he was my initial replacement for Morelos, but he didn't get a work permit. I'm trying to loan him out. He's not interested in going out on loan because he's just joined the club. Great. And there's not even a button where I can go to him and go, do you know what, mate? You've not got a work permit. You will play here if we can get you a work permit, but your best option to get a work permit is to go out on loan. So he was my initial replacement. It's not quite worked out as of yet. Hopefully he can go out and do okay, but as an advance forward, it's pretty natural. 4.5 star potential, 2-star current. So he does need a bit of work. I accept he needs a lot of work, but hopefully we can get him that bit of work. And that kind of prompts me to bring Ben Woodburn on loan. He's able to cover off all of our front four positions. Very solid player, but mostly he is signed for this role here. Again, some issues with it. He's not the quickest, he's not got the best stamina, not got the best work rate, which is probably quite important for my tactic. But at this point I was like, we're in trouble. I was going for Matias Arezzo as well. Unfortunately he went to a team in Germany, and again, whether he got a work permit or not was a completely different story as well. So we brought Ben Woodburn in on loan, kind of as a panic loan. Billy Gilmore in on loan as well. He can cover basically all our midfield positions, and he is homegrown at the club, so he is almost a freebie in the Champions League squad, under 21. So does he need to be registered in the league squad? I can't remember if he needs to be registered in the league squad or not. I think he might do, but again, homegrown at the club, it's kind of just that extra bonus for us for a loan. Wages are a bit higher than what I'd probably want to pay for a 20-year-old Billy Gilmore, to be honest, but again, I'm content with it. He can cover every single role that we need to play, so he's great depth to have. And then we got Lovro and Meyer. As I said, I was expecting midfielders to leave, and no midfielders has left, as you've seen. Aribo turned down a £45 million move to Bournemouth. He now has a deal that if certain clubs come in for him for 26 million, I have to accept it, which is rather frustrating because that's 20 million less than what I'd accepted and he turned down. But Lovro Meyer is a direct replacement for Joe Aribo. He can rotate with Joe Aribo. Big improvement. How much did he cost? He cost 6 million, rising to 9 million with some add-ons. But overall, top player. He's one that's been recommended to me for the last 3 or 4 FMs, and I've never got around to using him, so I was quite keen to do it. And we were on a bit of a Dynamo raid. We brought in Freddie Woodman because I expected John McLaughlin to leave. I know that Al McGregor's going to regress, and I wasn't sure if Robbie McCrory was quite ready, so we brought in Freddie Woodman. Newcastle got relegated, so that's 3.2 million rising to 4.3 million, and he's already worth 4.2, worth more than that when we bought him. He's a fairly solid all-round goalkeeper. I'm fairly content to bring him in, but because McLaughlin didn't leave, McCrory hasn't got a loan, and McGregor's still here because of that extension that he had last year after so many games. We've got 4 first-team goalkeepers. Not ideal, but hey-ho. We also brought in Antonio Amarin, a channel legend, an FM legend, for 5.5 million, rising to 8 million from Dinamo. Again, doesn't have a work permit, hoping to get him one soon. But again, he's same situation as the Daramy. He's refusing to go out on loan because he's just joined the club. Whereas I would much rather him go out on loan, get the experience, and then get a work permit at the end of it. But I still think this is a fairly good deal. We'll make big profit on him. Charlie Cresswell, one of the defenders that I brought in, he is one more for the future than anything. Young English centre back from Leeds. He cost £1.2 million. And then Mislav Orsic for 3.7 from Dinamo, the final Dinamo raid. We did go for Livakovic as well instead of Woodman, but that was at the point where our squad looked the weakest and he wanted to see big improvements before he'd even talk to us. So he can cover off again all our sort of front 4 positions, but this is where I was looking at. Now he's cost me 3.3 million, I think I said. I genuinely think we can retrain him as a striker, and he will be absolutely phenomenal in our system at striker. He's already worth 8.25 million and got himself goal of the month in the first game. 3.7 million, he's worth 8 million, and that's kind of where I'm looking at is, if we're signing senior players, we need to be able to quickly get a profit off on them. So we maybe get a year, 2 years out of him, develop Durrami in the background. There is another striker I'm in talks with that was recommended to me in the FM Rangers group that I will probably bring in. But again, he's young, similar sort of ability to Orisic, so can rotate. We've still got Kamar Roof as well. So that gives us, 3 options for that role. As well as Woodman, who will kind of be the backup, if you like. But I'm really excited. Again, a player that I've wanted to use for a long time, Orisic. And I think it's just been because he's more senior than what I've normally signed, but I thought, you know what, at that price, we can make a quick profit off on him, particularly if he is a first choice striker this season. Even Ampandu on loan from Chelsea was one of 2 potential loan options from Chelsea for centre defence. I think Malang Sarr was the other one. I've went with Ampandu. I can't remember what the reason. I compared them. They were very similar. But something just appealed to me about Ampandu of the 2. I think it was maybe slightly less wages in truth, although still very high at 37.5 grand. But he's, a solid, very good centre back. In fact, I think it was his nationality actually, because Malang Sarr was French. I wasn't sure if he'd get a work permit, so I went for him just to save the stress. Very good value at £20 million, our most expensive player value wise in our squad. Had a very good loan spell at Sheffield United last season, as you can see. But I'm excited to give him a shot. We've brought in Max Gilman, 3.9 million. He's already valued at 4.8. He is another centre back. As I said, centre backs were becoming a problem, and at this point I was kind of just stressing. Gilman, I think, is not necessarily the best centre back in the world, but again, one season, make a bit of profit at the end of it is kind of what I was looking at with him. We can develop him nicely, I believe. And then we've got another young player coming in. This is Regan Mimenhaw, a midfielder from Hamilton. He can cover, again, most of our midfield roles. Maybe not so much a deep line playmaker, but certainly he could go into the cam role, he could go into the Mazzilli role. Just adds that bit of depth. This season we'll sort of play what the Berjonas role was last year, I think, behind Kelly and Gilmore for the Mazzilli, behind Aribo and Meyer for the cam role, and he won't cover the deep line playmaker role. As I said, I don't think he's quite good enough for that, although realistically, stat wise, it says he could do it, so he could do that Berjonas role, I think. And then we've got Scott McKenna in as our final defender option. He cost me £3.7 million to bring Scott McKenna back north of the border. Former Aberdeen player, again, a player I've used a lot in the past. And I just scouted him on the off chance that he'd be available. I was expecting to be wanting 10-20 million for him. And when it said they wanted free between, I think it was 2.9 and 5 million, I was like, yeah, do you know what, I'm going for it. Current ability and potential ability, not as good as past years, but I think you can make a very good defender out of Scott McKenna. Still 24 years old, 18 caps for Scotland, and that rounds off our transfer business for just now. As I said, I'm in talks with one more striker, and then I think anything after that will be a like-for-like replacement. Still interest in Kamara and Aribo. Barisic has stayed. Now, he did kick off a little bit. There was a bid from Liverpool. In hindsight, I should have accepted this bid, but basically the bid I rejected, and then they put in a big bid the next day and negotiated it, and it was probably about the right kind of fee. It was about 26 million plus some add-ons plus whatever. I think there was a couple of instalments, and I went, do you know what, PSG are interested, Lyon are interested, Liverpool are still interested. I'm going to turn this down. We can maybe get an extra 5 million out of it. Liverpool never made another bid. PSG did, but never got to that amount again. So we do still have Borna Barisic. Tavernier has not had a bid that he has been interested in, or has interested me. I think the closest came was 20 million from Norwich. I think they can get more than that, to be truthful. So, and Ryan Jack had interest, but he had requested a new contract. The rest of the squad kicked off when I said no, so Ryan Jack got a new contract. Because, as I said, you need to keep these dynamics ticking. So here's the unhappiness. So we've got James Tavernier feels there's a lack of depth up front. Ryan Jack unhappy at the sale of Philippe Hollander. Joe Rebo, unhappy not being able to join Tottenham. That is the agreement where there's a £26 million agreement. Leon King, Dapple Mowbray and Young Combs are all issues from previous. Hopefully we can get over that eventually. Hierarchy, we are supported by most of the team, certainly most of the key players. And promises wise, how we're doing for promises. So Ryan Jack, we see here the contract. Joe Rebo, players that have been promised he'll be sold if a £26 million bid is received. Now one came from China, he wasn't interested, I did turn that down, he's not reacted to it. Ryan Jack is happy with the improvements at centre back. Tavernier is happy with the efforts to strengthen the squad. A couple of loans, but they're happy with how that is, and I promised Orsic that we'll win a domestic trophy this season. Finances, we have 66 million in the bank after all that. Of course, we've brought in, I think, spent 100. We've not spent 100 odd. We've spent about 30 million transfer wise, and we've sold 110. So it's kind of about right. Hopefully, we can start to move this budget balance forward. We've still got 19 million in the budget, and wage budget is currently at committed spending of 531,000. That's if that striker signs. 510,000. Now that's gone up quite a bit from last year because of when we've sold. Now I did make a budget adjustment to bring it more to the transfer window. I think I was trying to leave myself about 400,000, 450,000. That was kind of the budget that I was wanting wage budget wise. But as soon as Goldson started leaving, they were flinging money at me. So I've not adjusted it again. I don't plan on intending to increase the wage budget much more than where it currently is. This is kind of where I want to hover it. Anyway guys, this is the end of this very long episode. I hope you've enjoyed. Let me know what you think of the deals so far. If you're enjoying it, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll hopefully catch you next time for Applewell in the Champions League qualifiers.